Hi everyone, I am Dr. Ravina, NHS doctor specialised in women's health, and I'd like to welcome you to this dedicated channel specialised for women's health. Today we have an amazing guest who is Dr. V, and she is going to tell us all about our skincare tips. So I'd like to welcome you to this channel, Dr. V.
Thank you.
And today we'll be talking about PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I have done a lot of content on this, but actually I know it affects so many of you, and specifically your skin. So I'd like to talk about with you, Dr. V. Dr. V has so much knowledge on skincare. She's just released a book on skincare for skin of colour. And so what we would love to get from you today is how women with polycystic ovarian syndrome can better their skin, and what top tips you have for them to improve the quality of the skin, reduce acne. We know it's one of the biggest issues acne is with polycystic ovarian syndrome. So over to you, Dr. V.
So PCOS is common. You're looking at about 10% of the female population who get it.
Yeah.
And what basically happens is that your ovaries get bigger, they enlarge, and you may or may not have cysts. And so what happens with your hormones is that estrogen and progesterone tend to go down, and we tend to get increased testosterone. Now, testosterone is considered the male sex hormone, but females have it too.
Yeah.
And when it's out of balance, it can have an impact on our body. So you can get weight gain, you can get something called Acanthosis, nigricans, which is basically thickening velvety skin that happens at the back of the neck, underarms, back of the knees, so in the folds. And that is pretty typical when it comes to insulin resistance and weight gain, which can happen with PCOS. In addition, you can get acne, because don't forget that testosterone increases sebum production, and so now you're more prone to acne. You also get something called Hirsutism, so excess hair growth, which is why we tend to recommend ND-YAG laser for skin of color for excess hair growth, because constantly stripping the skin with wax is going to damage your skin barrier, and coarser hair is harder to remove. And so it becomes, you do a cost benefit analysis on the treatment to remove the hair, and it's causing more pain than good. So I wouldn't recommend too much stripping of hair. It's better to actually laser for PCOS. So I think those are the key things that I want to discuss in today's video.
So that's really useful information. So we have already got a video on PCOS, so watch that one and watch this one, because we go more into the treatment in this one. And we know that PCOS is so hormone driven, and so so what do we do about it? We're born with our hormones, we can't change them. So the next question is, what can we do about polycystic ovarian syndrome? And what can we do to help with all of these symptoms of hair growth and acne? And it does have such a mental effect on us.
Absolutely.
How you look obviously is so impressionable for young girls who've just been diagnosed with this. So what can we do to help women who suffer from PCOS?
So the first thing here is, because this is primarily a hormonal issue, you do want to treat that first. So they tend to put you on the combined oral contraceptive pill. They may also put you on anti-androgen drugs. Now, with anti-androgen drugs, first I'll take a blood test to assess if you actually have increased testosterone, because if you don't, then it's not going to be beneficial to you. But you actually want to do that first before you start treating the acne, because unless you treat the root cause, it's going to continue. If your testosterone is increased, it's going to increase sebum production, it's going to clog your pore, you're going to get acne. So that's the first thing you want to do. The second thing would then be over-the-counter products. So the skincare routine I would recommend would be based on the pathology of acne. So what happens first of all when you get acne? So you've got a pore like this, you get increased sebum production. So that basically creates a goop inside your pore. And on top of that, your skin cells become sticky. So it's called hyperkeratinization. So it almost clogs the pore at the top. In addition, now you've created an anaerobic environment. There's no oxygen in this pore. And guess which bacteria loves to replicate in an anaerobic environment? It's P. acnes bacteria. And so now you've created a soup, a delicious soup of bacteria and sebum, which then leads to a spot. So what do we do about that situation? So there's a few things we can do. Number one, we want to unclog that pore. How do we do that? We use vitamin A. So topically, the ones we tend to recommend would be retinol, retinaldehyde, my favorite, or tretinoin. Orally, it'd be isotretinoin, and that's for more severe acne, also known as ROACCUTANE, and you need to go and see a dermatologist, so that's not going to be over the counter. So that's the first thing you want to do. Number 2, and very important for PCOS, is using niacinamide, because niacinamide controls sebum production, and don't forget it's testosterone that's increased your sebum production. So niacinamide at 2 to 5% is going to be your best friend.
Yeah.
The next thing you want to do is use salicylic acid. You want to, it's a fat soluble acid. It's going to get into the pore and unclog that pore.
Yes.
And that's why salicylic acid at 2% is also going to be beneficial for you. And you can do that from a young age. You know, PCOS can kick in from your early teens. And so you know, salicylic acid and niacinamide are safe for young women to be using. You know, if you don't want to go to vitamin A at that age, I can understand, but those 2 ingredients are only going to help you. Yeah. The other one that I would put in later on, so and that's benzoyl peroxide. Benzoyl peroxide basically poisons P. acnes with oxygen. So remember I told you that in that anaerobic environment, P. acnes proliferates, but actually if you poison it with oxygen, they die. And so poisoning with benzoyl peroxide is excellent.
Yeah, I love how you've actually explained that, because you know, when you come and see your doctor, we give you sort of creams, and as you mentioned, vitamin A, and that's something that you can get from your doctor. But actually, there's a lot you can get from over the counter. So you can get salicylic acid over the counter. You can get niacinamide, and you know, there's a lot of marketing out there. So anti-acne cream, or you know, spot busting cream. But you actually need to know what is it on the shelf in the supermarket that you need, and Dr. V is great at looking at the active ingredients of what we actually need for our skin. And what a lot of parents say to me in clinic is, actually, you know, my child is suffering with excess hair growth on her face or on her body, and she's getting acne, and I don't want her to start on a combined oral contraceptive pill just yet. I can imagine. So there's so many things that you've explained that we can actually try before we even get to the point of a hormonal contraception, and especially because it does have an effect on our periods, and not all girls want to just stop their periods if they've just started them, or if you're trying to conceive, you need to have your period. So the oral contraceptive pill isn't always the best option. And it's interesting, we spoke about vitamin A, so that's something we need to be cautious of. So if you are thinking to have children, we need to make sure that you're not using it during that time of trying to conceive, because of the implications of your baby with vitamin A poisoning. But no, that's really interesting. So those active ingredients are things you can just pick up from the supermarket. So absolutely. That's good that you told us about those.
Then after this, with moisturizers, pick a light gel moisturizer. Now, the word non-comedogenic is a non-regulated term. So you can buy a cream that has fats in it that says non-comedogenic, because first of all, how do you prove that something is comedogenic or not? You have to look at the back of an ear of an animal. Everything in the EU and UK is cruelty free, so we don't do that, and so there is no regulation when it comes to non-comedogenic. So you almost have to use your own sense to think, is this light, is this going to clog my pore, or is it thick heavy cream that is not going to be ideal? So always opt for light gel moisturizers. Then the next one is, of course, your SPF 50. This really is key, and I know people hate it because they think, oh, but this is going to clog my pores. I think pick one that is light to your skin and that you feel isn't going to irritate too much. I think a really good option might be the powder, the Color Science SPF 50 powder, which is almost like makeup as well, and so it's tinted, and I use it on top of my foundation when I'm topping up my SPF 50 throughout the day. So it's non-comedogenic, doesn't clog your pores, and you get a bit of coverage as well if you're worried about any sort of pigmentation on the skin. And it's actually something I wouldn't mind Sienna using as a teenager, because I wouldn't, you know,
Sienna's Dr.
my daughter.
She is 7.
She's 8 now.
She's 8 actually.
She's still a baby, but in the future, you know, you're always thinking, what would I be okay with her using at 13, 14? I wouldn't want her to use proper foundation, but actually a tinted sunscreen I'd be happy for her to use. And they start getting acne at that point. So.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. So, so Dr. V's spoken about how we need to use like something quite light in terms of moisturizer. Anything that you would particularly recommend in terms of a moisturizer perfect for PCOS?
Okay, so actually we're coming out with Trio Blemish, which is a range specifically for acne and oily skin for skin of color, and it's going to have an AM and PM gel. So they're 2 moisturizers, but they've got actives such as niacinamide, azelaic acid, in the actual gel itself. So the actives, you don't need to use any other serums or anything. Everything is in your gel moisturizer.
So this is in your next range.
That's coming out, yes.
And what about now? Is
right now,
that
yes,
you can get now?
There is. You can try Face Theory Super Gel. Is again a pure gel moisturizer. It doesn't have any actives in it, but it's a really great light moisturizer if you have clogged pores. Okay, perfect.
If you guys have used any moisturizers or SPF that you find useful, drop them in the comments below, because we love to educate each other. So, and Dr. V's given some amazing products that you can also use. So we've done our moisturizer, we've done our SPF. How much time should we be spending? So, you know, in the morning you want to like quickly do your face, get out, go to work, do whatever you need to do. How much time should we be leaving between moisturizing in the morning and doing our second layer of SPF? And you mentioned that we should also be putting SPF on after we've done our makeup.
Yeah.
So like how do you do that?
Right.
Yeah.
So the way SPF 50 works is you're creating a uniform film on the skin, protecting you from UV. Now, whatever you put on top after SPF is going to disrupt that film unless you let it dry. Yeah. So what I would say is put your moisturizer on, put your sunscreen on. I tend to wait about a minute until my sunscreen is completely dry before I pop on any makeup. Then every 2 hours I will top up my sunscreen with a powder-based SPF 50, so it doesn't affect my makeup.
Do you put that on with like a brush?
Yeah, so Colour Science, for example, is just literally, it's just a brush. It's really convenient and you pop it on.
That's great.
There are lots and many different that are SPF 50 and you can use them.
Okay, amazing. Great. Okay, fine. So we've done our 2 layers. Now what should we put on? So we've done that. Now what?
Then it's just, if you want to put makeup on, that's fine. Yeah. And then just your SPF throughout the day. And then at night time, you want to wash your face properly. Double cleanse, because you want to remove all the sunscreen, all the makeup, everything that's on the skin, pollution as well, which can aggravate any acne. And I would, after you double cleanse, use your gel moisturizer, and that's it.
Double cleanse. Okay. So in terms of double cleansing, so what are you using to get rid of your makeup?
So double
using the cleansing to get rid of the makeup,
or
are you using that just to clean the skin before you go to bed?
Yeah. So for people who have acne, I would recommend you use a Micellar Gel Wash twice. So it's a double cleanse just means that you're doing it twice. Often one wash is not going to be enough, and you'll notice that. Say you put makeup on and you clean your face once, you put your face in a white towel and your face.
I've definitely done that.
Yeah.
I thought, get rid of my makeup. Why is it on my towel?
Exactly. But if acne is not your issue, then use an oil cleanser first, because it's much better at dissolving oil sunscreen, and then your micellar gel on top.
So oil first, then the micellar. And would anything that you recommend in terms of actually removing it? So like cotton wool, buds. There's also like you can get the more eco-friendly.
Goes with the eco.
And then how do you wash that? Because like, you know, if it's like a cloth or like a flannel that some people use,
you just rinse it under the water. So
just rinse it and then just leave it out to dry. Okay, away from the toilet seat. Away from the toilet. You don't want any flush and any of that rubbish on your face products.
Nowhere near
We need to avoid that. No poo particles anywhere near. But it's important, right?
It's important. Just in case you didn't know.
Okay, so the next question is, if you've already watched the PCOS video, you know that there's an element of insulin resistance that you can get with PCOS. So it's really important that we get on top of all those kind of cardiovascular risk factors that you might have. But one thing that you mentioned was acanthosis nigricans, and that is like that rash, that sort of a velvety texture on your skin, and that can lead to pigmentation. So how do we deal with that skin issue?
Okay, so this is basically thickened, velvety skin at the back, like you said. But actually, the key here, people used to come into my clinic and say, can you treat the pigmentation? But actually, you can't do that until you've treated the underlying cause here, which is obesity and insulin resistance. So the first thing I say is you need to shed the weight, and in order to see any benefit for treatment. And so what I would say is you really do also want to be on a low GI diet. So you don't want to have spikes of glucose and spikes of insulin. And you also want to be consuming anti-inflammatories. So
tell us a bit more, like what kind of foods specifically are low GI?
Low GI. Okay, so
and how often should we be eating? And you know, there's different fastings. Like, what's your opinion on all of those things to control our insulin?
I'm a big fan of intermittent fasting anyway. But in terms of GI foods, high GI would be things like white bread, white potatoes, red meat, they all give you insulin spikes. Sugar is your worst enemy, even though it's something we're basically all addicted to. It's not your friend. So that's one thing. And then the other one is having low GI. So low GI things would be spinach, kale, berries have high antioxidants, which are good for you too. Salmon, so you're getting your omega-3s, which is important for your skin barrier.
So that's quite interesting that you mentioned those, because when I have patients, they say, actually, you know what, I just love carbs, like I just love eating carbs, and who doesn't? What can I do? And it's so hard to say, oh, you know what, you just need to eat kale. You know what I mean? It's just like, no one wants to eat kale. So
I hate kale.
I hate kale.
I'm going to be honest.
You have to put it in like smoothie with all like the berries and all the sweet stuff.
Do you think it gets better with the... I mean, I like spinach. I actually really like spinach in any way. Spinach actually is delicious in a drink even. But kale, I don't know.
Kale's a difficult one. So,
it is.
So if you're one of those people that just love carbs, the best thing you can do is wholemeal foods. So, you know, we spoke about like, you know, the white bread, but actually just swap it for something simple like brown bread, seeded bread, brown pasta, and that just, you know, reduces that risk of insulin resistance. So yeah, if you're like me and love carb, then, you know, you don't need to give yourself a difficult life. Just, you need to eat what you want and enjoy your life.
The really good one actually is porridge. I think porridge is excellent. Fills you up. It's low GI. It's healthy. Put in some berries and like you will be done. Like you don't need to eat anything for the next 4 hours. You will be full. So I think that's something that I would just highly encourage as your one of your meals of the day, basically.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so moving on to other types of treatment. So we've spoken about acne. We've spoken about acanthosis nigricans and lifestyle changes we can do.
And excess hair. Excess hair is really important.
And excess hair. So what kind of things, so what type of laser? So lots of people are going for laser hair removal, and you can get quite good affordable packages for laser hair removal, but what specific lasers should we be looking at for PCOS patients?
So specifically when it comes to PCOS, but also for skin of color, I would always recommend long wavelength laser. So Nd:YAG laser, and the reason is it basically bypasses. So if you think about the skin, it's the epidermis and then the basal layer and then the dermis. This is where the melanocyte lives. You basically want your laser to go past the basal layer to the root of the hair follicle that's sitting in the dermis nicely without irritating the guard, without irritating the melanocyte. And the way to do that, secretly bypass it, is by using this long wavelength to get down to the hair follicle without causing hyperpigmentation. Because that's one of the biggest side effects of laser is PIH, post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. But if my children ever turns out to get PCOS, I would probably give her laser from a younger age rather than go through waxing and traumatize gentle skins. That or creams, deepilator creams, where basically almost it burns the hair follicle, so it's slightly lower than the epidermis, which means it takes longer for hair to grow back. That's a really good first step, but later as they get to 18, I'd probably recommend laser.
So a lot of women are going through laser because of, you know, hair just being such a massive issue, and it's not just, you know, on the arms and legs, it's in really visible places like, you know, the face and on the chest, on the belly. Now, is it safe to be using laser in all these sensitive areas? You know, even in the pubic areas, people are very hairy and that affects them. So is it sensible to be doing that? I
think for something like soprano ice, so Nd:YAG laser, I would say yes, because it's also got an anti-inflammatory mechanism to it. So it's not just heating the hair, it's cooling simultaneously, so you've got less chance of irritation. And now it's becoming painless too. I remember when I first started, I did it once, and they did like this much of my underarm, and I just thought I'd rather be hairy. It's just not for me. Like I think I screamed as if I was giving birth. It was,
oh my goodness.
I don't know, I think I've just got a very low pain threshold.
No, it is painful, it is. And it's just, you know, what women have to go through for beauty and for confidence, isn't it?
I feel like we have a much harder life than men, I'm telling you.
Okay, is that everything?
I think a couple of other things that I would add in was supplements. So anti-inflammatory supplements such as copper, zinc, vitamin C, vitamin E, so also your antioxidants. These also help with your skin barrier and reducing any free radicals especially if you're going to be doing things topically as well. So I think those, it's worth adding those as your daily supplements.
Like as a multivitamin type thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're taking anything, you know, over the counter, that's fine. Just make sure you tell your doctor if you start anything new, just because of interactions, and we don't want to overload you with too much vitamin.
Absolutely.
But anything else you wanted to add with us today?
I think that's pretty much it. I think once you've done all that, you'll be tired. So.
So thank you so much for all those amazing skincare tips for PCOS. We're so lucky to have Dr. V on our channel today. If you have any questions for Dr. V, drop them in the comments below. And it's not just PCOS. We know skincare can affect you in so many different conditions. So please do drop them below and we can do another video on it. And if you are listening to us via podcast on Fertility and Femtech, also you should watch us on YouTube, and you can also check out Dr. V on her YouTube channel. And so until next time, take care. See you soon. Bye.